Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I have a returning client and a little bit of a color history. She was going to someone that did permanent color on her, and when she originally came to me, the appointment prior to this one, we actually did a Demi root, which is what I'm showing you right now. I'm sorry it's not like perfectly focused, but I just kind of want to give you a gist. So I would say that little band an inch from her root is a little bit more translucent coverage than the rest of her hair, and you can see it gives that white hair a little bit more of a shine. You can still see the placement of where her grays were, opposed to doing the permanent color throughout her mids and ends. Those are covered with permanent color, and the Demi blend that we did last time was just to kind of get her by until this appointment, because when she first came to me, she was going out of town, so we did something that was going to just be a quick service because she didn't have too much regrowth at the time. And so then we waited until today to go in and pretty much do her highlights and Demi. Now, this is a client's first time with me doing a full gray blending, and so with this, we know that this might be a trial and error to see what she likes, because she's never done the gray blending where we do the Demi with the highlights and the gloss and all of that. So I've noticed with my clients that usually if a client is not wanting to go fully gray at first, like that color kind of scares them, they usually will ask for something more natural looking, maybe more blonde or brown or blonde even, and just to kind of help with the grow out so that they don't have that harsh line like normal permanent color does anyways. And so this is a great example of a client who wants gray blending but doesn't want to look gray. And so she does have quite a bit of salt versus pepper in her hair. So if we were to only do highlights at this point, the roots would still look lighter if we didn't do any Demi in between her highlights. So we opted to do the Demi in between her highlights because she still wants to be more natural toned, but she just didn't love the grow out and the contrast of the way that permanent color looked. And now, even though we are doing a more sheer coverage with that Demi, at least it gives it a more softness to her color, and she doesn't have the harshness of the demarcation line as this grows out compared to her natural roots, which primarily has a lot more silver than pepper. So the other thing that we discussed too in our consultation is the type of tone that she likes. So when we did her Demi last time, I used the Danger Jones gloss toners. We did a level 6 natural, and usually when I do a Demi coverage, I like it to have a natural background or maybe brown. I would think that if we use something that was more ashy, it might not give as much good coverage, especially since she's more silver than pepper in a lot of areas in her hair. So usually with the Demi, to get somewhat of a good coverage, even though it is a sheer coverage, it's best to put that and let it process under the dryer for, I would say, at least 10-15 minutes. And now this will also vary, so it depends on the hair texture, depends on how much gray they have, and it depends on what level you use, whether or not that will give you good coverage and how long you should leave it under the dryer. You could totally do a Demi blend with the Demi outside of the dryer too, but that also depends on the texture, because doing it outside of the dryer might not give you as much of a good coverage, and using Demi alone already kind of gives you a very translucent coverage anyways. So I always love to process it under heat. Now, when I do the heat, I don't do it on like perm or high or anything. We just do like medium heat, and I feel like that's good enough. Now, if a client has really resistant hair, I've noticed that if I just do a demi treatment alone with no foils, incubating the demi, sometimes it doesn't cover all the way. So sometimes I'll put them under a shower cap. So for her specific follow-up appointments, we will be using a shower cap when she does her demi. And the beauty of this one too is that even though we are doing a more natural neutral color, it will have a bit of that contrast to where it's kind of dark to her lighter root. But the plus side will be that it's not as harsh of a coverage, so there is some sort of blend to her natural gray. It's a lot lighter as her lighter roots start to grow in. Now, I do feel like I definitely don't get as great of a coverage if I don't put it under the heat or anything like that. And sometimes I guess you could get some coverage while toning, but I feel like whenever I do my toners too, I don't typically leave it on for more than 10 minutes. So I usually will try to get my demi coverage while they're processing under the dryer. And I always like to highlight the hair first before I apply the demi in between, opposed to doing the demi all over and then the highlights. I just feel like it blends a lot better when the highlights are put in first and then putting the demi as like that color in between the foils. And it's honestly pretty simple to apply. I feel like the Danger Jones gloss toners have a really great consistency to like staying put and not dripping or running through or making my foils slip at all, which is really important, especially when you're doing this kind of technique. And I would say too that like I love using the Danger Jones gloss toners for the demi coverage because it does give a good amount of coverage. Typically, I use at least like a level 6 and below when I'm doing any type of demi coverage, regardless of like their natural hair color. I would say the lightest I would do is a level 6. I feel like anything above a level 6, like a level 7 and up, doesn't give me the best coverage. And the other great thing too, if a client has white patches and not necessarily like majority of her hair is silver, then sometimes I even just spot treat those areas of where they have the white patches to kind of help camouflage everything all together. But that's kind of my take on the demis. I feel like it's a great way to help transition your client and get them used to gray blending before they kind of transition fully into doing a more silver or gray route. This is a great way to incorporate a more natural neutral color, and this client specifically likes more of a warmer neutral tone, so it was perfect for her. And the upkeep with this, I would say, is that we can do the highlights like every, I would say maybe 3 or 4 months or so, depending on the client's tolerance as to like what they're feeling. And in between that, they will have to come in to do the gloss toner for the root under the dryer to kind of give that bit of coverage in between the highlight appointments. So that's the only more maintenance there is. But opposed to doing it like permanent color every 3 or 4 weeks, I would say most of my clients can do the demi in between anywhere from like 6 to 8 weeks when they have this much gray. And it really doesn't bug them as much as it does when they have that permanent color. So right now I'm just kind of showing you how I apply the demi. I usually will do it in quadrants. So I normally do the sides and the mohawk in section. So once I'm foiling like the mohawk, I'll put the demi in between. Once I'm foiling the side, I'll put the demi in between, because I want it to start processing before I have to pull out the foils. So that's really important too, to kind of just start that demi process all together. And sometimes the demi, I don't go all the way to the hairline, just depends on our goal and how I weaved it. But I do love using the demi to just give it a bit of that depth in between. And I guess you could use say that the Demi is kind of acting as a low light for those hairs at the root in between the foils. And I'm so sorry I didn't really go over my foil placement, but if you are new to my channel, you can honestly check out any other gray blending video. I just really wanted to focus and talk about the Demis and how I like to use them and when I know when to use them before going into the technique. But yeah, you guys can check out any of my other gray blending videos where I do a very similar foil placement and then just incorporate this Demi in between. So since my client kind of wants more of a neutral tone and she doesn't want to see any like orange or anything like that, I did lift her to, I would say, a clean level 9. And after this, we are going to be toning her with the Danger Jones gloss toners as well. So for her root shadow formula, I will be using the same formula that I did for her Demi blend in between the foils, which is that 6-0. And so even though we did that in between her foils, the kind of color that it gives on a highlight versus doing a Demi blend on the white hair does look a little bit different. So it does give a different coverage when it's toning versus blending on the silver hair. So it will give a really pretty dimension when applying it on highlights at the root here too. And then after I apply this lighter toner, since we are doing a more neutral warm tone, I mixed up a 7-8 and then I mixed that with 7-3. So the 7-8 is pretty much a level 7 brown. Their browns are a little bit more, I wouldn't say it's super warm, but it's like more of like a neutral warm tone. And she did want it to be more on the neutral warm side. She didn't want anything to be anything too ashy or gray at all. So I did add in a bit of that 7-3, which is a level 7 gold, to kind of give it a little bit of brightness and warmth back in the hair without it being orange.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Feels good?
Like, yeah.
And the roots look good?
Yeah. It looks really, yeah, it's definitely a little lighter than last time with the highlights, so this is great. Okay, yeah, no, that looks great. Really nice. Yeah.
Yeah, the roots look really good.
Yeah, and I needed a little more color. I mean, it was really getting too dark. So.
Alrighty guys, so here is the finished look. I absolutely loved this tone on her, and now I know that the roots are going to grow out even softer than her last appointment since we incorporated those highlights with the Demi this time. And so when she comes in for her follow-up appointments, we're just going to be doing Demi until she feels like she wants to add in some highlights again to kind of help with the blend of everything all together. But this is going to just pretty much fade out a little bit lighter, get a little bit more golden as her roots start to grow in with it. But yeah, if you guys have any other questions on how to use Demi for your gray blending techniques, leave questions or comments down below and I will try my best to answer them to the best of my ability. But anyways guys, that is it for this week's episode. Thank you guys so much for watching and tuning in, and as always, I will talk to you guys next week.